First thing I want to share real quick is what is a credit score? I mean, how many people in this room are actually monitoring and being able to keep track of your credit score on an annual, at least an annual basis? Very good. Now more than ever, you need to do that. So a credit score is basically a 3-digit number, that's all it is, that is used by lenders and others to determine your risk, your credit worthiness or your risk level. Credit scores range from 300 to an 850. Did you all know that? Okay. 300 is not very good. 850 is fantastic. Out of the number of clients that I see, most of clients are somewhere in the middle. And from and Marco maybe can speak to this. Credit scores today are a little bit different than they were also, a year ago. Just like everything else is changing, because obviously the economy and things that are happening to us, they are impacting our credit scores. But no matter where your credit score is, if it's at a 300, there's good news, because you don't have anywhere to go but up, right? If you're at 850, that's good news, because you're obviously doing something right. But it's still important to understand what may be impacting that score, so that even if you're at 850 today and you make a decision that you may or may not realize impacts your credit, you could be down to the 500s, to the 600s, to the 400s, and don't even realize what happened. The scoring model basically is used to predict the future. Again, we don't have the luxury of coming in on an interview. So like when you're, let's say you're even at a store, you're at Kohl's, which I do not recommend you do, but let's say you're at Kohl's and they say, you can get 10% off today, and you're buying all this stuff for your kids, you want that 10%. Well, they're just taking your general information and they're putting it in the system, and they're coming back and they're giving you an answer. It isn't like you can say, can I have a meeting with the manager? I want to tell them about what happened with my scores, or they don't even tell you what your score is. All they're going to tell you is, excuse me, but you got denied. So you don't have that opportunity. So it's very important to know that what is in black and white, whether it's printed or what is coming up in the programs, is accurate about you. But that's what it's used for. The lenders use a mid-score. So it's not an average. People always ask, well, I took my 3 scores and I averaged them together. It's not an average. It is a mid-score. You have 3 scores from all 3 of the bureaus, and they ignore the lowest score, ignore the highest score, and they're focusing on your mid-score. That is what is used to determine your credit worthiness. Like I said, there are 3 major bureaus. Now there are other scoring models and other bureaus, but we really don't hear about them because they're not used in mainstream. There are 3 major bureaus: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And for those of you who think that these are nonprofit companies that are out to help the consumers, wrong. They are corporations that are there basically as repositories, but they do sell your information and they make money from the creditors that are reporting against you. They are not there for you. Got that? They are not backed by the government. They are not nonprofit organizations that are consumer advocates. That's not what they're there for. So the 3 major bureaus are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and they're 3 separate companies. One of the main things people say to me is, I got that off. Why is that showing on my credit report? I'd already dealt with TransUnion. I dealt with Equifax. And they don't understand that you have to deal with all 3. So whatever you're doing, if all 3 are reporting against you, it's not going to automatically carry over, because they don't have systems that are linked up together. So you think, well, I dealt with this one. Did they tell the other 2? It doesn't work that way. So we have to always look at and know who is reporting what against you. And keep in mind, these 3 bureaus, very, very commonly, they don't report the same thing. So they may report, you may get reported on Equifax with a balance of 500. TransUnion is reporting a balance of 450. Equifax is not reporting a new balance at all. So it is important to know you have to monitor all 3, okay? So here's just a snapshot of the bureaus, and actually, if anybody is interested in more information that I may be sharing, because I know it's a lot of information to take notes, I'll be happy to get the presentation, or you can visit my website where a lot of this information is there as well. But I just wanted to give you the contact information for the 3 bureaus. And if you ever get your credit report pulled, that information is always there as well. So if you've recently had your credit report, or through a process of purchasing a home, if you're working with Marco, the credit report will actually also have that information. So who cares about your credit? Hmm. It's not just banks. Utility companies, cell phone companies, credit card companies, obviously. And I don't know how many of you all are in financial employment or Secret Service or the government. Anybody in those type of roles? Oh, they're checking your credit too. They're checking your. Because credit in a lot of financial employments, it's about your risk. Credit is all about risk. So let's say I worked in corporate America for a good part of my life. I won't say old name, but anyway. And we were doing background, criminal, and credit on any employees who worked around money. Because I want to know if you're not, you know, managing your credit well, and again, I don't know the story behind you. All I see is what's on the paper. So if for some reason there are some derogatory information that's on that credit report, that's telling the employee that you might be at risk.
For stealing?
For stealing, for being bribed maybe, because you're having some financial challenges. And so if you're having financial challenges, if I'm looking at your credit that is extended to you and you're maxed out on everything, that kind of tells me or raises a flag that you may need some money. So if there's a lot of money that is part of your job that you are responsible for managing, and you maybe one day be tempted. So employers do look at your credit reports.